Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ryan,
I'm Remy.
And I'm Renon.
and today we're here to talk about archers. So, in D&D 5th edition, the archer really doesn't get a lot of recognition, and we thought, you know what, let's try to come up with the ultimate archer. Um, so, we're going to go through. We've all got together our builds independent of each other. That's part of the fun. See who comes up with the best build. And we're going to start with Remy, and we're going to go through to see what his build is.
All right, so for my take on the Ultimate Archer, I'm going primarily for consistency. When I think of an archer, I think of how archers were historically trained. Their strength was in their accuracy, their speed, and their dependability. I aim to achieve that by sticking with fighter all the way through level 20. However, there are alternatives I'll mention at the end that make the build more dynamic both in and out of combat. So to start off, for my race, I chose the half elf, I chose the elf, wood elf specifically, and I chose it because it not only gives a +2 to Dex, which helps out rangers and archers a lot, but it also gives a bunch of helpful abilities and features such as Dark Vision and Mask of the Wild, which are great in pretty much any scenario. Being an elf also lets you take the Elven Accuracy feat, which will help immensely with the build later on. And so for abilities, we use point buy, but if your DM only allows standard array, you can mimic this with standard array, the 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I'm going to go as the character sheet does. I put a 12 in strength because even though you're a backline DPS, you still are a fighter, and you can pull out a weapon to use when you get up close and personal with enemies. For an archer specifically, dexterity it should be the thing you max out as fast as possible because it helps with your accuracy when you're shooting, the damage when you're shooting with a ranged weapon, and it also helps out your armor class. The constitution, especially for a fighter, is very helpful because you're a fighter. Your defensive capabilities aren't nearly as high as other classes. You're not as elusive, so having the higher hit points actually will help you tank a little bit if you do somehow get hit. The intelligence, I put it at an 8. It's not extremely useful, in my opinion. If you're looking to do like nature, arcana, religion, etc., then you should at least make it not negative. But I personally don't find myself using those skills too much, so I leave it at an 8. On the contrary, wisdom is at a 13 because I use perception and wisdom-based skills a lot more, so I like to have it a bit higher. And the 10 in charisma is just because I hate having a negative. I try to avoid having a negative if I can, and charisma was kind of my dump stat when I had extra points. So onto the actual class features themselves. Mine's fairly simple and straightforward. At first level, you choose your proficiencies. I chose acrobatics and athletics. I use those a lot. I find myself enjoying having proficiency, so I chose them. That's up to you. Fighting style, because we're an archer, we're going to choose the archery fighting style. That'll give us a +2 bonus to attack rolls, and that's going to help out quite a bit. That +2 doesn't seem like all that much, but at the lower levels, that's a lot of potential damage you're gaining just from hitting the arrows. And you get second wind at first level. It's okay. It's kind of mediocre. It's there if you need it. It's more convenient than anything. Same with action surge. If you need to help out a buddy and use the help action, you can. Or if you need to do damage in a burst turn, then action surge is great. But until later on when the build starts to come together a little bit, it's more of used for convenience. Third level is where the build starts to pick up a little bit. You're going to pick the samurai archetype from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, page 31. And it's going to give you a bonus proficiency, which is helpful. Choose what you want. I chose Insight. And the key thing it's going to give you is Fighting Spirit. Fighting Spirit can be used 3 times, and you regain all the uses when you finish a long rest. And it'll give you 5 temporary hit points, as well as giving you advantage on all attacks that turn. And it's a bonus action. So if you just take a bonus action and then attack, that attack automatically has advantage. Later on, when you have extra attacks and you have different feats, that damage is going to rack up really quickly. And speaking of feats, at 4th level, we're not going to take a ability score improvement. We're going to take Elven Accuracy. And it lets you up one dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score. I chose dex. I think it's really important. And the main part is whenever you have advantage on an attack, Elven Accuracy lets you re-roll a die, meaning you have double advantage. So in conjunction with Fighting Spirit, means you're going to have triple advantage on every attack for a turn. And if you pair that with an action surge, just at 4th level, that's 2 attacks with triple advantage, which is a lot of damage. Next level, that becomes 4 attacks, or 2 attacks 4th with action surge because of extra attack. And then at 6th level, you get another ability score improvement because of the fighter. We are also going to avoid the dex improvement for now, and we're going to take the sharpshooter feat. Attacking at a long distance doesn't impose disadvantage, and you're mainly, like, the main reason you're taking it is you can take a -5 penalty to the accuracy of an attack to add 10 damage to it. And when you have triple advantage on an attack, that -5 penalty really doesn't hurt you all that much. You have 3 attempts to try to make any attack you have. If you have advantage, you have 3 attempts to land it, which is an extremely high chance, and you get a +10 damage if you do manage to land it. So if you're action surging, that's just at 6th level, that's 4 attacks with triple advantage with +10 damage in each arrow. You can kind of see where we're going here with the consistency. 7th level, you don't really get all that much. It's kind of a supportive thing. It's more role play-ish. It's all right. And you get proficiency in wisdom saving throws. So that's cool. 8th level, you're going to finally get into the ability score improvements, and we're going to take 2 into dexterity, and that's going to max our dexterity from here. And once you hit 20, it's super helpful. At this point, your bonuses to hit are easily double digits, and your armor class and everything is just great. Indomitable, 9th level, it's great. You can reroll a saving throw you fail. It's all right. It's whatever. 10th level, you get Tireless Spirit. If you don't have any fighting spirit charges, you regain a use. Again, not all that great. Around this level is when other classes and other builds are going to start to get their powerful features. We're gaining consistency. Our power is going to come a little later. Our like jump in power is going to come a little later. At 11th level, you get your 3rd attack per attack action with extra attack. It's cool. It's whatever. It's going to add to your damage. It's going to make you just overall do more damage every single turn. It's amazing. So at 12th level, you get an ability score improvement. Here is where you get to make a choice as a player on whether or not you value health and resistance, as in Constitution. You can take a +2 to your Constitution, or you can take a +1 to your Wisdom score. Because I oftentimes find myself needing a little bit of health, I chose Constitution. It's up to you. 13th level, you don't gain anything. And 14th level is when I chose to take the crossbow expert feat. If you have some magic, if at this point in the game you have some magical bow, or you have a magical bow as in a named bow or a +1 or whatever, you can just stick with it and take either Constitution or Wisdom, or you can do what I did and take crossbow expert and find yourself a heavy crossbow. Compared to a longbow, you'll actually deal more damage, like quite a significant amount of increased damage, and there's no loading quality. So if you have a heavy crossbow and no other alternative, crossbow expert's amazing. And rapid strike at 15th level, it's all right. It's kind of a volley effect. So instead of using elven accuracy to gain triple advantage, you can instead use rapid strike to fire 2 arrows at just regular attack rolls. It's all right. I prefer quality over quantity when it comes to trying to hit targets. But if you do need that just volley of arrows onto something, rapid strike is exactly what you're looking for. It's similar to I believe it's also called volley of arrows in Ranger, how you can kind of spray down a weak mob. Rapid strike is also really good at that. 16th level, simple ability score improvement. Once again, you can choose Constitution or Wisdom. I chose Constitution. And at 18th level, you get a super cool feature called Strength Before Death. And it's kind of a panic button. Because you're a ranged fighter, you shouldn't be within range to be hit by things, unless, of course, it's like long-range spells or something. But it's a really good button. So if you get hit to 0, like if you're one-shot somehow, you can just use Strength Before Death, use your second wind, and get those hit points back. And then continue on, and you'll get knocked down for barely a moment. It's useful, but don't rely on it. You should plan on trying to avoid damage rather than tanking it. You are, after all, the backline. 19th level, you get ability score improvement. I chose Constitution. Again, you can choose Wisdom. You can choose any other stat. I just prefer the health. And at 20th level, the Apex of Fighters, you get 4 attacks instead of 3. And at this point in the game, if you are trying to get the most damage, you can use your fighting spirit as a bonus action. Attack with 4 attacks with triple advantage. Use a sharpshooter for +10 damage, and then action surge for another 4 attacks. It's a crazy high amount of damage, and you can do it 2 or 3 turns in a row before having to finally cool your engines a little bit and just doing your 4 attacks per turn. It's crazy efficient, and the only change I would think to make to it outside of the decisions, you can include 2 levels of Warlock instead of the level 20 fighter. So you can go start. You always want to start fighter, but at some point in the middle, you can put 2 levels of Warlock. And the reason you do this is so you can go to Hexblade Warlock, which is also Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and you can get the Hexblade's Curse. If you are a mid-rangey sort of archer and you don't want to sit in the back, if you can get within 30 feet of like the big bad evil guy or some sort of boss, you'll actually deal more damage than the level 20 fighter. However, that does come with the fact that you are within 30 feet, and even if you run back 30 or so feet, you can still get hit by quite a bit. And then because you're level 2 Warlock, you get invocations. You can choose, I prefer Devil's Sight, as Devil's Sight's always my go-to. It's just better dark vision, and you can choose something like Eyes of the Keeper or whatever else you want to pick. It adds a little bit of flexibility. It adds a little bit of spells, and so you can change up how you're going outside of combat as well as a little bit of inside of combat. But if you're going for just consistency, I would say stay with level 25.
All right, so for my ranger, I wanted to focus on not getting hit over killing enemies. So for that, I chose the Aarakocra because I think having flight is very important for both escaping a fight and getting into an advantageous spot against your enemies. Also, the race gives you a +2 to Dex, which is an essential ability score for any competent ranger. It is important to note that the Aarakocras do have a starting 25 movement speed as compared to the 30 from most other races. So for my ability scores, I went with Standard Array. I have Strength set to 10, the baseline. I don't think it's very important for a Dexterity class, but I do think it's still useful in situations where raw power is the only option. Of course, Dex is set to the highest, 15, but it won't stay at 15 for long. With incoming ASIs and the racial boost, it will soon hit its max. I set my Constitution to 13. I think Constitution is very important for getting hit. It's important for when you get hit, you try to recover from getting hit. Plus, the Aarakocra's laughably bad AC stat doesn't help. So having a high Constitution is important. I think Intelligence isn't as important, but it's still maybe good for ability checks, stuff like that. And Wisdom is important for the Ranger as it is their casting modifier, or the spellcasting modifier, so it gets to 14. And for this character, Charisma to me came as an afterthought, getting the leftovers of Standard Array, giving it the 6, or giving it the 8, sorry. Plus, who thinks birds know how to communicate well with other people? All right, so for my first 3 levels, I went into Ranger, which allows me to get proficiencies in Insight, Perception, and Athletics. For my favorite enemy, I chose Beasts, a rather common enemy in most D&D games. And for my language, I chose Elvish, as it's one of the most common languages in D&D spoken outside of Common. And for my 3 natural environments given to me from Natural Explorer, I chose Grassland, Coast, because those are places that birds are most often seen in real life and most likely in D&D as well. And also the mountaintops, as that's where Aarakocras make their homes. For my fighting style, I obviously chose archery, as most rangers are archers, so makes sense. And for my 2 first level spells, I of course took Hunter's Mark, and I also took Cure Wounds to ensure that I can stay in a fight even if I do get hit. And finally, at level 3, I chose my Ranger archetype, which was Horizon Walker, which gave me the ability to cast Protection from Good and Evil, the ability to detect magical portals within 1 mile of me at the cost of a spell slot, a first level spell slot, and Planar Warrior, which allows me to use a bonus action to cause all damage given to an enemy caused by me to become force damage, alongside an extra 1d8 of force damage. And as I continued down through the levels, I continue to follow the path of the ranger, which means that at level 4, I got an ASI. I put both of an ability score improvement. So I put both of those into dexterity, bumping my 15 with a +2 from the ability scores and the +2 from the race right now to a 19. At 5th level, rangers also get an extra attack, which just means that when taking the attacking action, they get to attack twice instead of once. Also at 5th level, because of Horizon Walker, I learned the spell Misty Step, and along with that, I learned 2 first level spells, those being Cordon of Arrows and Healing Spirit. At 6th level, I learned how to track and hunt dragons and also speak their language of Draconic. At 7th level, I'm able to cast Etherealness as a bonus action, which allows me to step into the ethereal plane, basically making me intangible. And finally, at 8th level, non-magical lands, non-magical and difficult terrains no longer cost extra movement, and if a non-magical plant has thorns, spines, or anything of the like, they also no longer affect me. And at 8th level also comes another ASI, which is used to boost Dex up by 1, giving it its 20, and Wiz, which is once again important to a ranger. And at 10th level of ranger, I'm able to camouflage myself after spending a minute on the ground with access to natural materials like dirt and mud and sticks. And this, when in a stealth skill check, it adds a +10. As long as you take no actions or remain still, you can stay with the +10 stealth indefinitely. And at level 11, I have the ability to blink up to 10 feet away into any unoccupied space that is visible to me when I take the attack action. This ability can be used multiple times if I'm able to attack multiple times. So I'm able to blink twice because I am able to take the attack action twice. And this ends the ranger side of the Ultimate Ranger. Now move on to the rogue. At level 1 of the rogue, I got my proficiencies. I chose stealth for mine. Obviously, a competent rogue is always hiding in the shadows, never able to be seen. Also at level 1, I got expertise, which allows me to double the proficiency for any ability or for any skills that of my choice that I'm already proficient in. I chose stealth and insight. So once again, being stealthy, very important for a rogue, and insight, if I ever need to check somebody out, see what someone's doing, I can do that. Also at level 1, rogues get sneak attack. Basically, when a rogue has advantage on a creature, they roll an extra 1d6 to the damage. This increases as the rogue's level increases as well. Finally at level 1 for the rogue, you get Thieves' Cant, which is a language written and spoken that only only rogues are able to understand. So a rogue can speak to another rogue using Thieves' Cant, while a fighter would not be able to understand it. At 2nd level, I chose Cunning Action, which allows me to use a bonus action to either dash, disengage, or hide. 3 things that are all important to getting out of a fight or getting into a better spot. At level 3, I chose the Scout archetype, which automatically gives me the ability to move up to half of my movement speed away from the enemy that ends their turn within 5 feet of me as a reaction. And this movement doesn't provoke an opportunity attack from the enemy nearby. And at 4th level, I chose the Crossbow Expert feat instead of an ability score improvement, which allows me to ignore the loading properties of crossbow. And while I'm within 5 feet of a creature, I don't have disadvantage on range attacks. 5th level rogues have the ability called, they have access to an ability called Uncanny Dodge, which allows them to use a reaction and have the attacker's damage against the rogue. At 6th level, rogues get 2 more expertise skills, and I chose Athletics and Acrobatics. At 7th level, rogues get Evasion, which means that when a rogue has to make a dex check to take either full damage or half damage against an attack, they now take either half damage or none at all, depending on whether or not they fail the check or not. At 8th level, the rogues get another ability score improvement, which I use to take the Mobile feat, which bumps my suboptimal 25 movement speed up to 35. And for my last level in Rogue, level 9, rogues get access to superior mobility, which increases their movement speed by 10, and that now makes my movement speed 45. All right, and now that we're done leveling up our character, we can go ahead and visit the character sheet, which shows the accumulation of all of the fruits of our labor. So we see the skills with expertise being shown with a circle around the black dot meaning that you're proficient. So a bunch of skills, they all have very high bonuses. So basically, if you roll anything that anything above a 1 for most of these skills, you are going to succeed in your check. Armor class 17, probably not the best for characters around level 20, but another downside of the Aarakocra is that you can't wear light armor and still have the ability to fly. So you kind of gotta pick and choose your play style. One of my favorite things is that with the spell Cordon of Arrows, which is when you plant 4 arrows into the ground, and an enemy ends their turn within 30 feet of them, an arrow will unplant itself. It will fly out of the ground and fly into an enemy, basically revealing that enemy's location. So if you combine that with your camouflage skill, you're able to stand next to the pile of arrows, and when an arrow flies up and navigates itself towards an enemy, you'll know exactly where an enemy is and have the perfect time to strike.
Alright guys, for my character, my archer, I'm going mainly rogue and dipping into ranger and a little fighter. I feel each of these 3 classes will give me bonuses to damage and a lot of fun outside of action too. I'm going to maximize this build's to hit, so my arrows don't miss that often, and then once I hit the target, poof, I disappear into the shadows. Great ability. Alright, so first thing I took was the human variant race, and the main thing that gives me here is a couple of abilities, one to dexterity and one to wisdom. Gives me the stealth, which is great for rogues, and it gives me a feat, which is I took alert. Now the alert gives me the main thing I'm going for here is the +5 bonus to initiative. And that's going to come into play a little bit later in the build. Okay. The abilities I took, I kind of, rogue, kind of did a dump stat of strength. And again, sorry, I'm doing point buy here. If we did do standard array, then we can adjust these a little bit. But this one's point buy. And again, I did a dump stat for strength and charisma. I'm not going to use them much in this build, but I did max out my dex, right? Rogues definitely need to have high dexterities. Like Remy and Renon, I also went with a high constitution. Look, you can't get away with a good health on these characters. At some point, you're going to need good hit points on them. And intelligence and wisdoms; those will help with some saving throws and some other bonuses out there as well. Alright, so for my build, I took the first 3 levels into rogue. And rogue gives you lots of things, sneak attack, the thieves can't, but the main thing I'm going for here is the archetype at level 3, which is assassin. So assassin's great. The big thing with assassin is this item here, assassinate, and it gives you, as it says, you're at your deadliest when you get the drop on your enemies. You have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in the combat yet. So that's primarily why I went with alert for my feat, because that gives me a +5 to the initiative. And if I go before some other creature in the combat, then I'm able to get advantage on all my attacks. So that's going to come in big into this build later on. Okay. I then went the next 5 levels into Ranger, so levels 4 to 8. And the main thing I'm going for here is 1, to get archery, right? That'll give us a +2 to our attack rolls, and so we're going to miss a lot less now. But the archetype as well, and I went with Gloomstalker, right? So Gloomstalker gives us a couple advantages, and one of them is, excuse me, the Umbral Sight, which basically gives you dark vision. But the other great ability is here too, while in darkness, you're invisible to any creatures that rely on dark vision to see you in that darkness. Again, for a rogue, an amazing ability. But for this build, another thing that's pretty awesome is this Dread Ambusher. So at the start of your first turn of each combat, my walking speed increases by 10, which is great, but if I take the attack action on that turn, I can make one additional weapon attack as part of that action, and on top of that weapon attack, it does an extra 1d8 of damage. So at this point, I have one attack with the longbow, and if I go first, or if I take the attack on my first turn, I get a second shot with that longbow with an additional 1d8 of damage. So that's amazing. I mean, that gives you just an extra attack right there. So at level 4 in the Ranger, I took the feat Medium Armor Master. Now what this does is it allows me to take heavier armor, and I'm going to be using the medium armor here, so I can take half plate armor, and it doesn't impose disadvantage on my dexterity. So I can get that extra +1 to armor class, but also it allows me to use my dexterity modifier. So instead of adding +2 to the armor class, I can get a +3. So this feat right here allows me to add 2 to my armor class, a +2 to the armor class. So this is a great feat for kind of a squishy rogue. So this is great. And then of course the 5th level gives us an extra attack. So again, if I go, if I take my attack action on the first turn, this will give me 2 attacks, but with Dread Ambusher, now I get a 3rd, right? So I'm up to 3 attacks in that first turn, and as I progress up in levels, you know, my initiative's getting better. I'm going first in most cases on these battles, and I get advantage because of the assassin archetype in rogue. So it's great. All right. So the next 2 levels I took in rogue. So levels 4 and 5. So I get an ability score increase, and this is where I'm taking sharpshooter. Now sharpshooter's great. I can take a -5 to penalty to the attack roll, and it gives me a +10 to the damage. Right. So now that I've got advantage on that first attack, I'm pretty much going to take sharpshooter every time. So I'm going to get a -5. At this point in the round, my 2 hit is at +9. So even with the -5 penalty, I'm at a +4 to hit, but I have advantage too. So that's really going to make it hard to miss on your first round of attack. So these 2 levels, and then Uncanny Dodge, these 2 levels are great. It gives you a lot of extra damage, and you're not going to miss much. And if someone does try to attack you, you can just say, I'm sorry, you're going to half the damage. Alright, so the next levels I took were in Fighter. So Fighter, as Remy mentioned, you got a couple things in here. Second Wind's great. Action Surge is awesome for this build, because in that first round I have 3 attacks. Well, with Action Surge, now I get 2 more from the attack, so that's 5 attacks altogether at this level. And then I can take an archetype as well. Oh, I missed one. The fighting style at first level gives me another +2 to hit. So the archery fighting style helps me hit even harder, so we're even missing less now. And then I'm going to take at the 3rd level the martial archetype of Arcane Archer, primarily just because it gives me extra damage with some arrows, right? So I can put some Depends on the situation, but you know, we can go for you know, the bursting arrow. If there's a lot of damages out, you know, a lot of enemies out there, we can do 2d6 worth of damage to those that are in 10 feet. Or I can do the shadow arrows, which do 2d6. So you could add these arrow shot options to 2 different arrow attacks in a round. And then the 4th level for fighter, I took dexterity bonus for the ASI. So that'll also help increase my to hit abilities there. All right, so for the rest of the build, I went with rogue. And the primary reason is for the sneak attack. Because the purpose of my build is I'm going to pop out of the shadows, I'm going to hit you with some arrows, and then I'm going to disappear right back into the shadows, so I keep getting that sneak attack on every round, which will add up over time. Alright, so level 6, rogue. We get a couple more expertise, which help quite a bit. We use perception and acrobatics quite a lot, so I love those 2 options for expertise. Evasion is great as well, another way to either half or take no damage to area of effect items, such as Fireball and Red Dragon's Fiery Breath. And then at 8th level, maxing out my dexterity, so this will get me up to level 20 on the dexterity. Alright. And infiltration expertise is great. You can create false identities. That's great for out of combat stuff. And this one is kind of a, you know, didn't know which way to go with this one. I like the feat of the resilient. I took it for wisdom. And the primary reason for this is for those ability checks, right? So you get proficiency in those in wisdom ability check here. You get a +1 to wisdom, but primarily it's for those savings throw and other things. And then reliable talent at the end of level 20. Basically, if I am allowed to use ability check, if I roll anything less than a 10, it's a 10. So that's a great thing as well for different checks and everything. All right, so what does this give us at the end of this? Here's what we've got. So showing my character sheet here, the big thing here is I'm at a +15 to hit. So with the +15 to hit, that means I'm taking sharpshooter at every chance I can, right? That knocks that down to a +10, you know, that's going to mean you're going to still hit almost all the time. And if it's on the first round of combat, because I have the assassin rogue, if I go before someone else, right, my initiative is +12, I'm getting advantage on all of those. So I got 3 attacks, plus at this point, I have, I think 5d6 of sneak attack, 6d6 of sneak attack on almost every shot. So everything that hits will get that, you know, will help with that. That 6d6 will help out quite a bit. So this character is pretty good, and then with the +17 to stealth, almost every shot, and I'm going to disappear into the background. So there's my character. I hope you liked it, and yeah, let us know. Alright, so those were our 3 builds. We hope you liked them, and we're just going to chat a little bit about them. So, you know, I definitely see the benefit of the fighter. You can have 4 attacks in one round. Action surge, that's 8. I like the rogue, you know, because I love rogues. You know, that's just my style of playing, and you get those extra sneak attack points. But Remy, what are your thoughts on these builds?
I really like the mobility, like Renon's mobility. How it's not just based off of features and stuff that have cooldowns. Just as an Aarakocra, you can take your movement in flight, and that lets you get to a lot of places that other characters would have to use skill checks or items or some other feature to get up there. So, for instance, if you're in some area where elevation is like an actual issue, like the aircraft could get to a tree or a higher point or a rock or something to give him an advantage, where my character would have a lot of issues climbing to a vantage point during combat. So I think that's mobility is super cool, and it's something that my archer kind of lacks a little bit on.
I think like each of us have like something that the other person doesn't. So like you're saying that you have like more damage, but or I have more mobility and less damage. You have more damage, less mobility. Like I was thinking, I about taking levels, like getting rid of levels in rogue and going into fighter. That way I could be able to shoot more. That's kind of what I wanted to do. Was just like, yes, I'm in the sky now, and then I shoot you a lot. And so I was thinking, if I take fighter instead of rogue, I would sacrifice like the ability to move like quicker on the ground and get out of like get out of situations, but I would be able to like rain arrows onto people.
Yeah, I think we all kind of hit upon the sharpshooter and crossbow expert. Those are always great options for archers in general. That -5 to hit and +10 to damage is amazing, especially later rounds when you're hitting most of the time. And just kind of to point out, we're using plain vanilla equipment in these builds. And if you're really a level 20 character, you're going to have magical armor, magical bows, magical everything, +1 to hit, +2 to hit. So those stats are going to go up even more than just the plain old wooden bow or wooden heavy crossbow. So there's a lot of builds out there that you can do, but just I think you can see that all these builds they ended up pretty similar as far as damage. I think Remy's was probably going to hit the most just because of all the 4 attacks. Hate to be on the end of that, but it's just fun to build. And any improvements that you would do, Renon, let's say on your character, after hearing the other 2 builds, would you maybe do something a little different?
I kind of want to get rid of less levels in rogue. What level does fire get like the first extra attack? I want to say it's
5th level is when the first extra attack happens.
Right,
so
but
that would be.
You have ranger though, right? So you would have to go to level 11 to get that 3rd attack.
Would it be? I thought if you just get an extra attack.
No, they don't stop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
wow,
I tried
that kind of sucks then.
Yeah.
I'll have to be level 22.
Ranger has some great abilities though outside of the combat situation too, just because of all the tracking and the hunting. And I think you took beast, right? You're hunting beasts. So that's huge as far as playing in a lot of combats, because a lot of combats you're going to go against different beasts out there.
Well, what I was kind of like going for was like with the natural explorer taking grasslands, coasts, and mountains. It was kind of like in real life, birds are typically seen like grasslands, just like a plains, you'll see a bird flying over by, or the coast, you'll see a seagull. In the mountains, that's where it said the Aarakocra like usually live. And for what was the other thing? So you said something earlier, or like just now.
Yeah, so you're flying above everybody up in the air and just picking them off one at a time, huh?
Yeah, like while I was also kind of thinking of like a vulture, because they're like flying above people, like circling them because they think they're about to die, so they're like, oh, that's my next meal. I feel like that would be kind of like a fun like thing to do. Is like, oh well, I know who I want to kill, and then I'm just like above them, like circling them as I'm slowly falling to the ground and like peppering them with arrows.
Yeah, that's why I think a lot of the fun comes when you're talking about archers, is that you're not limited to, or like rangers that long range DPS. You're not limited to like specific weapons or play styles because you have to be near enemies. Like when it comes to a ranger, like your approach, or as an archer, sorry, your approach to the class is completely based off of like your surroundings. Like, for instance, if you're always going to be like in somewhat tightish corridors, like a dense forest or something, you're not going to want to sit 200 feet away. You're not going to be able to see anything. But like Renon said, if you're in the wide open plains and there's just nothing for miles, it's going to be a lot more beneficial to be 40 feet in the air compared to standing flat with everybody else in the party. So one of the things you have to take into account when looking at these archer builds is, well, what's the setting? Because consistency or like stealth or mobility is great, but in certain scenarios, it really can be a detriment to you. So it's your choice, and it's you knowing your scenario to as to which build you should choose or which build you should even think of trying.
Yeah, for my build, I didn't go into it too much. The main scenario I was looking at was, underground, caverns and the Underdark and stuff, and that's where that Gloomstalker really comes into play, right? Because if there's no ambient light or anything, no one can see this guy because of that, the Gloomstalker, and I was thinking one of the things I was thinking later on too, you can kind of, if you wanted to, instead of taking the last feat that I mentioned, you can take something like Magic Initiate for Wizard and getting Minor Illusion, right? So that is a great cantrip, especially for a rogue, because you can create a fake rock and just disappear behind a fake rock, and all of a sudden the enemy's just hit with like 4 arrows right in a row, and then poof, that guy disappeared. Where'd that guy go? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a but like Renan said, if you're out in the middle of a field of like a savanna or something, there's not a lot of cover. Yeah, my rogue can't really hide all that well, unless he has that minor illusion. So, but yeah, one thing I was surprised is that no one went with Paladin. Paladin's a good option for Archer as well. You got a lot of additional abilities there too that you can use.
I think Paladin is just like a really strong like class in general. Like if you don't really know what you want to do, or you're kind of like I think I just want to like swing at stuff, or I want to just kind of do this. You could most likely multi-class into Paladin and make something like work out.
Yeah, yeah, and Paladin's always a fun one to play too. For that role playing experience as well. So great job, guys. You guys both built some great archers. And again, there's never one right way to do things. There's so many different ways to go, and part of it's the role playing aspect of it, in and out of combat. Then you got the combat. So these are all great builds. So good job, guys. So this is Ryan.
This is Remy.
And I'm Renon.
And I just want to thank you guys for watching our video, and hope you guys have a great day.
See ya.
Bye-bye.